Culture is not your friend. Ideology is not your friend. This is one of Terence McKenna's most important ideas. You can hear it in his own words if you watch his lecture on the topic, and it may be the best way to fully appreciate it because of how well he articulates it, but it's an often overlooked yet indispensable idea because it opens a door to a conversation which is of vital importance. That is, the fight for our autonomy and what may best be described as our essential humanness. To understand this idea, we first have to understand the dichotomy between two concepts: novelty and habit. Novelty, McKenna argues, is a fundamental guiding principle of the universe, and is what the laws of the natural world tend toward. In modern times, we live in an ever-complexifying world. Scientific advancements, artificial intelligence, convoluted geopolitics, space exploration, sea exploration, rapid environmental changes, an ever-deepening and entangling internet. A Byzantine world of compoundingly diversifying chaos. But the further we look back in time, the simpler things become. And if we look back far enough, only a field of energy. In McKenna's words, as we approach the present, it's as though the universe has undergone a series of crystallizations out of itself of higher and higher forms of organization, and this is what I call novelty. In contrast with this, habit is based in conservatism, recidivism, tradition, and risk aversion. Every aspect of the universe from a macro to a micro scale throughout all of history operates upon a tension between these two factors. Nature, however, leans in the direction of novelty. More than this, it most often tends to preserve that which is novel over that which is not. The extinction of the dinosaurs 65 million years ago is a prime example of this phenomenon of novelty preservation. For the Earth of that time to reach the highly evolved system of plant and animal life working in conjunction that it did, it had taken 4 billion years. In the wake of a single asteroid, all that was erased. But in a mere 65 million years, a relatively short span of time compared to the 4 billion years it took originally, the Earth has been restored to an even more complex and diversified system of plant and animal life than it originally held. This novelty rule is not simply an increase in complexity at a constant rate, but an exponentially increasing thing, meaning this complexity grows faster and faster as it progresses. Although these advancements have typically happened over the course of eons, in recent times they have reached the point of happening within much shorter spans of time, meaning they are humanly observable. Changes happen within the century, decade, year, and month. In the most recent years, some changes can even be seen within weeks, days, and hours. McKenna notes that the universe is expanding faster than the ordinary laws of physics can account for, and a very counterintuitive picture of things is emerging. The universe is not going to fall back on itself in some grand crunch billions of years hence. Rather, the universe is going to expand forever. Forever. But here's the kicker. Faster and faster and faster. Forever. With no barriers and no limitation. This constant, ever-present expansion and hyperdiversification is a key pillar of reality itself. The universe is a constantly sophisticating, eternally unfurling thing, and it will do so forever and ever and ever. Call it God, call it principle, call it whatever you may, this eternity is possibly the most fundamental truth of life. When we make contact with this core reality, we simultaneously reaffirm our connection to our own humanness. To appreciate this truth, one need only observe nature at any level. And one of the best things to assist in this observation, says McKenna, is the use of psychedelic substances. This is one example of where culture intervenes. This is where ideology puts its foot down, and why, if it comes at the cost of something so indispensable to our being, should we allow our cultures to intervene between us and ourselves. Even if it comes at the cost of a sort of alienation from the environment we have become accustomed to, it is certainly worth this price to evade a thought mechanism which is built exclusively for its own self-interest, regardless of whether it is to the detriment of our own beliefs, aspirations, inclinations, and whatever else may interfere with its bottom line. Culture is what McKenna describes as a language-based virtual reality, meaning that through the way that ideas are communicated and presented, reality can be distorted and we can be manipulated. Religion, of course, is probably the most blatant example of this virtual reality, but it also extends into nearly every corner of our lives, including advertising, bureaucracy, social dynamics, career expectations, familial expectations, and broad cultural norms. Culture is, in the truest sense, a virtual reality, a shrunken, distorted simulation of the truth. When we limit ourselves to live within these narrow cultural realities, we diminish ourselves and the human experience. McKenna posits that if a culture had values which it considered strong enough to hold up under intense scrutiny, it would encourage genuine dissection. But as of now, we have rarely, if ever, seen this type of legitimacy, at least on the level of a large-scale society. And why is it that culture shies away from being challenged in this way? Likely because ordinary human consciousness has evolved to be a finely tuned threat detection machine. And culture is a form of group consciousness, or at the least, a mass indoctrination into a uniform worldview. Following this to its natural conclusion, it can be logically deduced that all cultural values naturally lead to the creation of the paranoid personality. This mode of thinking has been the basis of the world we've built thus far, and if it is not reversed quite soon, it may be too late for us. It may already be too late. All around us is the evidence that we cannot carry on as we have to this point. The only question left to us is whether we will change. As McKenna says, if the Sermon on the Mount could have done it, we would have turned the corner then. We've had great teachers, and they were crucified, trampled, ignored, distorted, perverted. The right idea is not enough. What is necessary is the lightning strike of true gnosis, however that can occur. All that, in summation, is McKenna's perspective on culture. What is so significant about this idea is how acutely it gets at the truth. A truth that may be lonely, but the lie which sits in contrast with it goes deep, and that type of prison is forever. To live complacently within our cultures is to willingly subject our spirits and intellect to a watered-down, caged-off, and trivial version of reality. Nor are the various elements which make up a culture authentic pillars of solidarity. They are not, in the truest sense, unifiers. They are dividers. They separate us along lines of race, geography, and religion. They add stronger foundations to an us versus them view of the world. They put barriers between the possibility for development of any species-wide unity by way of arbitrary and frankly mostly foolish qualifiers like food, dress, half-hearted ritual, and unexamined social dynamics. There are a number of ways in which culture and ideology can be broken down into more directly approachable subgroups, but three which I consider helpful are number 1, religion, number 2, mythology, or maybe more appropriately, story, as distinct from religion in its function and purpose, and 3, what I will broadly call social ritual, accepted behaviors and societal expectations. The prospect of dissecting the separate features of culture is difficult because of how intertwined it all is, and these may not be the best overarching elemental representations of culture and ideology as a whole, but are good examples to probe nonetheless. McKenna mentions religion as a prime example of language-based virtual reality. Religions, of course, offer hundreds of different answers to the same primary questions. Why are we here? How did we get here? Where are we going? Each religion holds different parts of truth, and thus it cannot be reasonably argued that any one religion is the greatest and holds the most singular truth. And if this is so, then there is no reason one should not practice every religion they see fit instead of any one in particular. If a religion truly claims to get at the truth and yet denies you access to a piece of the truth because it comes shrouded in the aesthetics of another culture, then how can this religion claim honestly to have anything to do with truth? What would be a more accurate evaluation is that when a religion does this, it is serving the interest of that previously mentioned greater good, the self-serving culture machine that feeds itself on the dead hopes of outliers. Just like ideology at large, religion serves the interest of the institution which upholds it. Most obvious, of course, is that, in the case of Christianity in particular, the promise of a glorious afterlife deters the potential for working-class rebellion if the working class should recognize that their entire societal purpose for existence is to suffer in the interest of upper-class pampering. But religious control aids social oppression in far more ways than this. Historically, aspects of Hinduism like dharma and karma have been used to enforce the class system, varna, and birth system, jati. Certain Islamic nations and communities, such as Saudi Arabia and Afghanistan, are extremely oppressive to women. Under the beliefs of Zionism, an extremist and supremacist distortion of Judaism, a genocide is currently being justified in Gaza. Sri Lankan Buddhism, or Sinhala Buddhist nationalism, supports authoritarian politics and overtly racist and chauvinistic ideology. Across all different cultures and all different nations, religion is used to justify what cannot be validated with rationality, and in the case of its extremes, it is no more than a highly venerated mental virus. This is not to argue against religious feelings themselves, but it is to argue against their structuralization. When a belief system has been institutionalized and socialized, it has been desecrated and perverted. Mythologies are the stories and characters by which we define our ideals and archetypes. In America, it is the cowboy, the rugged individualist gunslinger. In ancient Greece, it was the gods and heroes, the proud and courageous warriors who stand tall in the face of any foe. In a capitalist society, the cowboy, our rugged individualist who will do whatever it takes to get by, is the perfect mythological figure. In an ancient society which was constantly at war, Achilles was a perfect guiding principle to build a class of men who would not hesitate to slaughter whoever stood in their way. So what appears to be a cowboy is actually an antisocial, amoral mercenary whose only loyalty is to self-preservation. And what appears to be a leader of men is a hyper-violent, psychopathic megalomaniac whose concept of peak human achievement is brutality beyond comprehension. And was Achilles a cautionary tale? Yes, in part, but only when his rage did not serve the greater good. These mythologies encode in us our ideas of the perfect form of being, and while hyperbolic, are still emulated subliminally through symbolics and thought patterns. But mythology is more than stories and legends. It is our history as well. Our political figures, our wars, our eras of turbulence and eras of prosperity. Moments of suffering are glorified and attributed with substantial payoff, while moments of prosperity are romanticized and recreated without their blemishes. This is no accident. These things hold up our ideologies. They stand to validate the necessity of our institutions. Especially in America, historical opposition to our system is retrospectively reframed as an expression of our system and function, rather than proof of its inadequacy. Institutional America integrates the stories of its failures as showcases of its virtues in action, as its own natural reorientation toward justice rather than its bitter opposition to it. Our stories teach us how to embody the frictionless citizen. They give us role models for how to play the game without questioning its rules. Social rituals are a somewhat nebulous aspect of culture because they are influenced by every other aspect of culture there is: religion, mythology, history, geography, language, and the rest. But lacking further specificity, we can examine it broadly as what is expected of us. Mutually understood expectations, whether implied or explicated, are what define us more directly than anything else within our cultures. They map out the trail of our lives and give us clear barriers for acceptable behavior. Sometimes these things are enforced legally, but more often they are enforced interpersonally by either direct criticism or subliminal condemnation. In some cultures, it is a strict obedience to religious codes. In others, it is a rigid deference to familial hierarchy. And in others, it is a total adherence with a political or economic system. Oftentimes, all of the above. Under religious scrutiny, the individual is subjected to strict limitations on what constitutes acceptable human experience. Under familial hierarchy, the individual is subjected to the whim of their ruler, often the eldest male, who more likely than not makes their choices unconsciously based on the values of their culture. Under political and economic control, the individual is limited by an Overton window of accepted belief in opinion and action. These are different methods for the same outcome: control and repression, dominance of the state over the people. Culture and ideology do not only control through heavy-handed restriction, however. One of culture's greatest strengths is its ability to dull down, nullify, and smoothen the edges of its people. It is a machine which produces its own most effective participants. Culture is an excuse for the simple-minded and boring. Culture gives the opportunity to approach the world on autopilot. It gives the ability to, rather than interrogate one's own beliefs, excuse, pass off, and deny ignorance or outright stupidity with the phrase, "my culture believes that," etc., etc. All these manifestations of culture tend in the same direction, toward habit. These biases and restrictions and guardrails, they are all formed in direct opposition to novelty. In other words, they fly in the face of natural existence. When we willfully subscribe to the dictates of our cultures and our cultural frameworks exist along the lines of McKenna's definition of habit, conservatism, recidivism, tradition, and risk aversion, we are, in a sense, going against the current of reality itself, a reality defined by McKenna's novelty, infinite expansion and hyperdiversification. If we can accept and live in accordance with this truth, we can find a freedom not held by any existing version of human society. As of yet, we remain bound by habit. Surely we can do better. Surely we can build for a different type of future as we destroy obsolescence without undue sentiment or the terrible, sappy irrationality which keeps us clinging to long outdated fixtures of the past. Surely we can learn from the past without being slaves to the past, so that the way we move into our world's future is dictated by the terrain ahead of us and not by the terrain we've already traversed. This is not all just to say that the past is simply archaic and modern humanity is somehow magically superior. This is not the case. But if we cannot look at our pasts and our ancestors and our intergenerational behavioral patterns as simple objective learning materials and not some strange phallic extensions of our egos, we will never learn and we will certainly never evolve. To move forward with full presence of being, the past is to be destroyed. Not once, but repeatedly and with calculated discipline. The past is the past and is not for us. The ideals carried on the backs of our family tree were for the people who carried them, not us. The only beliefs, the only traditions we should carry are the ones processed through critical thinking. Only when the past is destroyed can it be autopsied and evaluated for its usefulness. Learn the past, understand the past, respect the past, and recognize yourself in the context of the past. But do not attempt to be the past. It is over, it is done, there is no going home. Build something new. Build your own narratives, establish your own traditions. Understand that they will turn to dust and do not attempt to pass them on. Build community with consciousness and self-awareness, using your own inventions and not the tools handed down to you by a group of people who did not occupy your same reality. If we do not deny, if we do not resist, if we do not fight back in the arena of ideology against presupposed values, traditions, and ways of being, that fate we ready ourselves and our psyches to meet is a small, dark cube of segregate reality.